Kubla Khan by Samuel Taylor Coleridge continued. What this poem is all about. It is a metaphorical journey through a complex labyrinth of symbols and images that represent the unconscious and seemingly troubled mind. It is a mosaic of fragments of thoughts and incomplete themes. There is intentional ambiguity in the poem. William Hazlitt once said, Mr. Coleridge can write better nonsense verses than any man in England. There is a dissolving phantasmagoria in the poem, which means a sequence of real or imaginary images like that seen in a dream. This poem is about the poetic process, a poem about poetry. This poem is meta poetry, it is poetry about poetry. There are wide range of interpretations. Nature, if greater than man, Kubla Khan tries to capture and train nature. Imagination and the process of creation, especially poetry. This poem is about all these things. It describes a magical place. It is a dream of a woman singing. It is about writing the poem makes the magic real. Reality destroys the magic. Society destroys the poet. In Xanadu did Kubla Khan. Xanadu is the summer capital of Kubla Khan. An attempt has been made to identify it with Chang Ti Fu on a branch of the river Lan Ho. Kubla Khan is the grandson of the great Genghis Khan (1206 to 27), the founder of the Mongolian Empire. Kubla Khan ruled from 1257 to 1294. A great conqueror, he completed the subjugation of China. Xanadu and Kubla Khan gives us a sense of remoteness in space and time. Remember that remoteness is the essence of romance. It also helps in making the supernatural elements of the poem more convincing. K, K, D, D, R, R, M, M, and S, S are alliterating in these lines. This gives us a sense of the exotic and the mysterious. A stately pleasure dome decree. Stately is grand and splendid. Grandeur and majesty versus luxury and leisure. A pleasure dome is a magnificent place with a dome. It was meant to be a place of enjoyment. Decree is sovereign power. Where Alf the sacred river ran. Alf is supposed to be a sacred river, just as Egyptians considered Nile sacred because of its water fertilizing the soil. Through caverns measureless to man, down to a sunless sea. Caverns are deep caves, measureless are immeasurably deep. Sunless sea is some dark subterranean sea. The structure stands within a wild and untamed landscape. Man can neither map nor comprehend the caverns. The destination of this life-giving river is a place without light. In Xanadu did Kublai Khan build a palace encompassing 16 miles of plain ground with a wall, wherein are fertile meadows, pleasant springs, delightful streams, and all sorts of beasts of chase and game, and in the midst thereof a sumptuous house of pleasure. So twice 5 miles of fertile ground, with walls and towers were girdled round, enclosed. Nature is controlled, separated and set apart, attempt to control, pattern and order the natural world. And there were gardens bright with sinuous rills. Sinuous rills are small streams following a winding course. The walls indicate that it is not a public domain, it is a private place, where blossomed many an incense-bearing tree, and here were forests, ancient as the hills, enfolding sunny spots of greenery. Incense-bearing tree, tree with a resin or a gum, which when burned gives fragrant fumes. These trees often grow in Asian countries. But oh, that deep romantic chasm which slanted down the green hill athwart a Sadan cover. Romantic chasm is a broad, deep opening in the earth. It is said to be romantic because it arouses feeling of awe, mystery, and strangeness. Slanted is sloped. Athwart is across from corner to corner. Sadan is of cedar trees. Cover is a kind of screen formed by the Sadan trees. A savage place as holy and enchanted as ever beneath a waning moon was haunted by a woman wailing for her demon lover. Savage is wild, fearful, primitive, a place that could fill one with fear and dread. Holy and enchanted, sacred and magical. Subject to magical influences, the two words suggest that all the terrors of magic and witchcraft. The waning moon, diminishing moon. The period when the moon wanes is considered suitable for magic and witchcraft. Haunted is visited again and again. Wailing is moaning, sobbing, and crying. A woman who is crying for her demon lover. We must think of a woman captivated by a demon who deserts her after having made love to her. Unable to forget him, the woman goes to some enchanted place to look for him. The romantic chasm being described by the poet is very similar to the place haunted by this woman. A deep, awe-inspiring chasm sloped down a green hill across a screen made by the cedar trees. It was a wild place fit for magic and witchcraft. It was the kind of place frequented by a woman who, after having been loved and then deserted by her demon lover, sets out in search of him under a waning moon. These lines contain all the romantic suggestions foreign to the work of Pope's school. Note the allusion to enchantments, the mysterious darkness, and the reference to the grisly old stories of women seduced by devils in human form. As usual, too, alliteration and subtle modulation of vowel sounds aid in effect. And from this chasm, with ceaseless turmoil seething, ceaseless turmoil is never-ending tumult and agitation. Seething is bursting, bubbling with a hissing sound. Chasm is a place of constant turbulence, symbolic imagery of birth, as if this earth is fast, in fast, thick pants were breathing. A mighty fountain momently was forced. Pants are short breaths, fountain is spring, and momently every moment the water gushed out intermittently, as if this earth in fast, thick pants for breathing is personification. Have we descended into the poet's unconscious, where we are now encountering ceaseless turmoil? The poetic inspiration is sporadic and intense, amid whose swift, half intermittent is occurring in brief intervals. Huge fragments vaulted like rebounding hail or chaffy grain beneath the thresher's flail. This suggests the fleeting nature of creative thought, difficult to pin down. Tremendous power and force of the mighty fountain is stressed. Boulders are first compared to hail, then grain. The chaffy grain is the grain which is not yet freed from chaff. Vaulted is leapt up, huge pieces of rock were thrown up and they followed a semicircular movement downwards. Rebounding hailstones falling from the clouds and thrown back upwards on account of the powerful impact with the ground. The thresher's flail suggests a strong stick hinged on a long handle used for separating grain from chaff. Thresher is the person who threshes grains, that is, who separates grain from chaff. From the deep romantic chasm described above, there gushed forth at momentary intervals a spring of water, making a tumultuous sound. The intermittent bursting of water gave one the impression that the earth was breathing in thick, fast pants. Each time the water gushed forth, it threw up huge pieces of rock. These flying pieces of rock could be compared to hailstones thrown up after striking the earth or grains leaping up under the thresher's flail. The images of rebounding hail and chaffy grain under the thresher's flail, though exact comparisons, tend to diminish the effect that are meant to convey. But the fact is that these homely and familiar similes help to make the supernatural phenomenon of the rise of the river more realistic and acceptable. And amid these dancing rocks, at once and ever, it flung up momently the sacred river, 5 miles meandering with a mazy motion through woods and dale. The sacred river ran. There is alliteration of M in 5 miles meandering with mazy motion, and alliteration of R in sacred river ran. Dancing rocks are large pieces of rock being thrown about the fountain at once and ever suggests a continuous process. It flung up momently. It refers to the fountain or the source. 5 miles meandering. Meandering is flowing in a winding course with a mazy motion. Mazy is zigzag. Winding, meandering and mazy convey the same idea. Then reached the caverns measureless to man and sank in tumult to a lifeless ocean. In tumult is making a loud noise. Lifeless ocean is the sunless sea that is mentioned in line 5. Perhaps the line refers to some subterranean lake or sea. And amid this tumult, Kubla heard from far ancestral voices professing war. Kubla Khan heard the voices of his forefathers predicting war. This line is supposed to be one of the most suggestive lines in the poem. It is difficult to decide whether the voices belong to Kubla Khan's ancestors or the ancestors of his prophets. The account of Kubla Khan in Parchas mentions the belief of the Tatars in the survival of their ancestors in another world and the custom of beginning wars only after consulting the priests. Once we accept that Kubla Khan heard voices in the tumult, psychologically how true it is to imagine that he heard voices prophesying war since he himself was a great warrior. Human creations and stations are not permanent. Dome is threatened by destructions of war. The shadow of the dome of pleasure floated midway on the waves. Floated midway on the waves means the shadow of the magnificent luxury palace floated in the middle of the river, where was heard the mingled measure. Mingled measure is mixed noise. The mingled sounds of the gushing waters of the fountain and the current of the river Alf flowing into the sunless sea could be heard at the place where the shadow of the pleasure place fell on the river. From the fountain and the caves, where was heard the mingled measure from the fountain and the caves. It was a miracle of rare device. It presented a marvelous specimen of human skill, made according to Khan's master plan. A sunny pleasure dome with caves of ice. The pleasure place presented an example of rare human skill. The building was erected in such a way that it had a bright sunny dome on its top, whereas below its floor were ice-cold caves. A damsel with a dulcimer. Dulcimer is a kind of stringed musical instrument. It is played by striking the strings with two small hammers held in the hands. In a vision once I saw, I is the poet himself, it was an Abyssinian maid, a girl belonging to Abyssinia. This reference immediately brings before us the adventure of exploration and discovery in Africa. And on her dulcimer she played, singing of Mount Abora. Mount Abora is a purely imaginary name. Names like Alf and Mount Abora belong to the geography of romance. The name Mount Abora might have been suggested by Mount Amara of Abyssinia mentioned by Milton in Paradise Lost. Symphony and song. Revive is recreate. Symphony and song is the song as well as the orchestral composition that she played on the dulcimer. To such a deep delight it would win me that with music loud and long I would build that dome in air, that sunny dome, those caves of ice. It means that the poet would recapture the beauty of that dome in his poetry. In these lines, Coleridge describes the act of poetic creation. If a poet gets inspired, he can create lovely forms and shapes with his imagination. Coleridge once had the vision of an Abyssinian girl singing of the wild splendor of Mount Abora and playing on her dulcimer. It was a beautiful song indeed, beautiful enough to inspire him. He says that if he could revive it in his heart, he would be so inspired that he would build Kubla Khan's dome in the air. That is, he would give such a vivid description of Kubla Khan's palace that those who read it would feel that the palace actually stood before their eyes. And all who heard should see them there, and all should cry, "Beware, beware." The poet's powers are so marvelous that they create awe and dread in the reader's mind. His flashing eyes, his floating hair, weave a circle round him thrice. His flashing eyes, his floating hair. This line gives the picture of a poet caught in a poetic frenzy. Weave a circle round him thrice, going round a person three times to bind him with magic. And close your eyes with holy dread. Holy dread is fear as one feels in the presence of God. Those who listen to the poet should beware of him and close their eyes with holy fear. For he on honeydew hath fed. Honeydew is a sweet, sticky substance found on the leaves of trees and plants, now held to be excreted by insects like aphids, but formerly supposed to be some kind of dew falling down from the sky. So people felt that it was something coming from heaven, and drunk the milk of paradise, that is, nectar. Honeydew and milk of paradise mean the magical food that produces divine inspiration. According to Coleridge, a poet caught in a spell of poetic inspiration becomes almost a divine being. He is capable of giving such a vivid description of objects that he can make his listeners to feel that the objects are actually standing before their eyes. In a way, like God, he too is capable of creating objects. So he must be one who has fed on honeydew and drunk the milk of paradise. His listeners should beware of his magical powers and close their eyes in awe in his presence.